We're on a road to nowhere. Come on inside. Taking that ride to nowhere. We'll take that ride. I'm feeling okay this morning. And you know, we're on the road to paradise. Here we go, here we go. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. Would you like to come along, and you can help me sing this song, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day. It's alright, baby, it's alright. They could tell you what to do, but they'll make a fool of you, and it's alright, baby, it's alright.
Hello, and thank you all so much for joining us. I already see some fabulous people in the comments. So tonight, we are continuing M4M4ALL's Week of Action, in which we will be discussing, tonight we'll be discussing the Women's Disability Empowerment Roundtable. I wanted to, coincidentally, it just turned out that everyone responded was women. And I'm like, yeah, this is an opportunity. Let's do this. So it works because I think a lot of times when we talk about our disability, we kind of, it's such a traumatic topic that I think we kind of focus on that naturally. And if we end on discussing empowerment and how we can help and what keeps us going, I think it'll take a different turn, and it's always good to be inspired like that. So let's we'll go around the circle and we can introduce ourselves. Noli D, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Noli D, and you can find me here on YouTube. My disability is my legs don't work correctly. They barely work. And so I'm in a wheelchair to get around, and that access is difficult.
Michelle?
Okay, hi everybody. It muted and I thought I muted myself. My name is Michelle Mastern. I'm a disabled advocate and activist. I live in California. You can find me on Twitter at @Steffer, which is probably impossible to spell, but and I'm looking forward to being here. The types of disabilities we deal with physical as well as mental health related issues, and then complex living under capitalism and the lack of support that we have that compounds everything that everybody deals with.
Absolutely. Maria?
Hi there, my name is Maria Rivaldi, and I am from just outside of Burlington, Vermont. I was paralyzed when I was 12 years old from the chest down in a diving accident. So I have limited use of my arms and no feeling from the chest down. Glad to be here tonight to talk about this very important topic. Thanks, Joy.
Absolutely. And this is Maria's first time on a show. So I'm so excited she said yes. And Joe Sheree, people probably know who you are. But for not, can you just give a description of why you're here?
My name's Joe Sheree. I live here in Topeka, Kansas, and I take care of somebody who has a disability. And he has cerebral palsy. He's my son. He's 22 years old, and I've been fighting a lot of uphill battles with him as far as getting services and whatnot. and I have I'm running for office in hopes of changing some of those things. So I'm glad to be here, and thank you, Joy, for asking me to be here tonight.
Absolutely. So if we just want to go around again, Noli D, what are some of the obstacles you find? And I know that's a vague question, but what are some of the most trying obstacles you find, even in day-to-day life?
Well, let's see, day-to-day life, I would say access to things like my wheelchair tires and wheels. Excuse me. They're so expensive. They're more expensive than my car tires. And insurance doesn't cover them. And so you got to pay for these. But if you're on SSD, you're getting what, $8.50 a month? How are you going? I mean, that's not even livable, period. You know, how access to the things that we need are really, really important, especially medical devices. Another issue that I've ran into, and this really bothers me because recently in the Supremacist Court, yes, you heard me right, they have made a decision to where people like you and I can no longer sue people for denial of access. It is really disturbing. Nobody that experiences discrimination will be able to sue ever again if we don't deal with the Supreme Court. I don't know what we're going to do, but we need to do something. I'm thinking remonstrance on all of them. That's my opinion. But this is horrifying. This is truly horrifying. People who are, I mean, this doesn't just affect, people with disabilities. This affects all minorities. And so I think right now that's kind of my biggest, holy crap moment is they're taking away our only way to fight back.
Wow, that is terrifying. And, I'm sure all of us have experienced where there are places that do not have wheelchair or elevators. There are places that do not have ramps. Our march is Saturday, and they want $2,000 for a wheelchair ramp just to rent it for the stage. So we ended up getting a lift, which was $1,500 to rent. And, it's truly incredible. Like, you are penalizing people for something out of their control, which is so discriminatory. And ADA, those guidelines were written way too long ago. And they also have something where if the structure was built before such and such a date, it doesn't have to be up to that code, things like that. It's incredible. Michelle, I know you were having difficulties because you had to spend, I believe it was over $50,000 on a new van.
Yeah. So COVID has really shown me more clearly the level of oppression for anybody who's disabled in our society. And it's a level of oppression that I feel horrified by because we've done it multiple times in the history of the United States, and we still do it, this different levels of oppression in different ways to many groups of people. We have the global majority that is considered a minority group. We have, barriers are everywhere, but the larger barriers that I struggle with are the attitudinal ones, the ones that are compliant with the system, especially the ones we find within the disability rights spaces, where everybody is like, oh, we need these things, but yet those things don't fix the problem. And that's kind of, I have experienced a barrier to accessing COVID treatment just recently because I'm currently dealing with COVID. Because my medical system that I go to a fairly good medical system to get what I need, but because they're so busy focusing on everybody else, and because everybody wants to walk away from this pandemic, that it compromises us. And currently I'm at a point where I'm not safe anywhere because nobody is understanding the realities of the systems that we work in. Medicare for All is a huge part of this. You know, I had to shift my job. I'm currently in transition, you know, with the job. And that's another barrier given the pandemic and given I'm disabled physically as well as having complex medical issues. So all of this barriers are everywhere, and people need to start to realize that I'm not talking physical barriers here, because with a little bit of energy and effort in our brains and our intentions, everybody becomes welcome. But when you're putting on an event or doing something that doesn't have COVID protocols, doesn't have accessibility variables, doesn't pay the extra money for the stage or the lift, because I'm sorry, until we have more groups doing that, the price will not come down. And those are things that we need advocacy around as well. So, I mean, that didn't tell you all the barriers, but I think it gave us synopsis of some. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm so proud of. M4M4ALL, we got the wheelchair lift. All of our signs are in Braille. We have ADA interpreters. This is, if you are doing especially a healthcare rally and you don't make it accessible, that to me blows my mind. And there are so many groups who do that, and also who just ignore, you know, doing shows like this and, you know, having real people on and discussing things that, you know, so many people are dealing with. Maria, how about yourself?
As I mentioned, you know, I was injured when I was 12 years old, so I've had a disability for a while now, and I'm 43. And I was lucky to live in a state, Vermont, where their Medicaid long-term care system is very good. So for me, the issue has been less about trying to get things covered, I mean, most things are covered, but there's a lot of loopholes and things, you know, they make you jump through loopholes and go through a lot of work. You have to keep on top of, we only have really one durable medical equipment store, and because another one closed this year. So we have only one in the area. And you have to stay on top of them because you put in your request and you tell them, I need a Hoyer lift. And I don't hear from anyone for 2 weeks. And then they say, okay, well, now you need to get us this information from your doctor. And I get them that information from the doctor. And then they say, well, you need some sort of approval from a PT to be able to do this. So then I have to go through all the rigmarole of getting that. And then I finally get to them and they say, oh, well, we didn't really need all those things. But, you know, so it's just like a circus act trying to stay on top of them. And I feel like I'm almost doing their job most of the time. I feel like, where's the customer service? Why do I have to run and get these things done when isn't that your job? Isn't that why you're getting paid the money to, you know, get these the equipment for us? But in terms of my real passion of why I support Medicare for All, I mean, I support it for many reasons, but one of the main reasons is 13 years ago, I had to choose between my health care and marrying the person I love. You know, I've been on Medicaid all my life. It not only does it pay for expensive equipment like a $40,000 wheelchair and a hospital bed and a transfer lift, but it also pays for a personal care assistant attendant that I wouldn't be able to live without. And so because of that, I needed to make the choice because Medicaid puts their income cap so low and their resource cap so low that if I was to marry and combine that with another partner, I would potentially lose my healthcare coverage. So that is why I am passionate about it. I would like to be able to marry the person I love. And a secondary condition to it, which, you know, I just put up with, but I don't think people think of it, is because Medicaid is different in every single state, I can't just pick up and move from Vermont and go to Florida. I would love to live in a warmer state, but that's not possible because I contacted Florida and they said they have an 8-year waiting list to get onto their Medicaid system, and you have to live out those 8 years in Florida. You can't just put your name on a waiting list from Vermont. So that's never going to happen for me. So I'm really pushing for a more universal healthcare system that covers everyone the same.
Absolutely. And there are examples as well of things, going state by state that just go horribly awry. In Missouri, there was, they had state by state Medicare for all on the ballot, or excuse me, Medicaid expansion on the ballot, and it passed. However, it was held up in court for 2 years because the government didn't want to pass it. Even though it was passed, they didn't want to give it to them. So they still had, even though it passed on the ballot, nothing happened for 2 years. So that's why we need it national, and we need it to happen. If it's national, nobody is going to pick and choose. A lot of states don't have Medicare expansion. They don't even have that possibility. Now, Joe, I know you deal with a lot of barriers with you and your son as far as state programs. And you have basically, if you got a job, you would lose many services and there'd be no one to take care of your son.
Exactly. And, to the lady who is to my right in the black and red, and what is your name again? I'm sorry.
Maria?
Maria. Okay, thank you. I thought it was an M in there somewhere. To Maria's point, with care attendants, we have we need Medicare for all with universal home and community based supports added in, because one, our care attendants in Kansas are not getting paid enough. They get paid $9.30 an hour. That was the cap that we were told that we could pay a care attendant. Two, they don't get trained. They do not have any continuing education training. They get no benefits other than their pay. And there's really not a sufficient background check that is done on them. So if we had universal home and community-based supports for people with IDD and disabilities, then we would be able to, at least I would call for continuing education, better pay, the ability to have state-funded healthcare insurance, and because if you work for the state, you get state healthcare insurance here in Kansas. And I'm not sure exactly how it works in other states, but at least that they would have health insurance. And I really feel like if they were treated like any other employment class, that and got benefits, that maybe we'd be able to retain quality health care attendants in the state. Because we have, when we had care attendants, we didn't have a very good crop of care attendants. A couple of them were actually abusive behind my back that I didn't know about. They also had drug problems that I didn't know about. Just a whole bunch of stuff. And, one of the reasons why this won't change in Kansas is there's a lot of politicians who are in the back pockets of the insurance companies that that are involved in administering the state Medicaid system. And I just saw a question in here. How can you guarantee retaining good people like that? Exactly. Thank you. Police accountability report. Very, very, very good point. It's really, it's disturbing. I was just doing a deep dive the other day, maybe yesterday or Sunday again, on all of the politicians in Kansas who take money from the insurance companies. And oh my God, you know, the insurance companies sit there and say, well, we can't afford this and we can't afford that, but you can afford to give upwards to $4,000 to $5,000 to $7,000 to a politician, but you can't afford to get a family off the waiting list. With all of this money they give to politicians, we could eliminate or at least work on reducing the wait list for services. Because again, to Maria's point on wait list, here in Kansas, we have up to 5,000 Kansans that are waiting with IDD, intellectual and developmental disabilities, who are waiting up to 8+ years for home and community-based supports. And that is unconscionable. And we have a governor who has refused to fund agencies that are trying to get people with IDD off the wait list. And, I'm just like, so what are we supposed to do with this? Special education has not been fully funded this year, even though everybody's touting that education has been fully funded. No, it has not been fully funded because special education has not been fully funded. And we have, my opponent says he wants or is in support of fully or funding special education up to 92%. Now, I'm sorry, with everything that is required for an IEP for one family, it is a lot of time and resources. Now, if you have, say, 200 families in a school that are all on IEP, imagine all the time and the resources that entails for 200 families, So special education needs to be fully funded in Kansas. And I don't understand why, when it comes to people with disabilities, I don't understand why it's means tested to death, and that's what it is. And again, to Maria's point, I can't get a job. If I decided to, that I wanted to be with somebody, I would have to really think about how their income affects mine. Because everything that we have, we're on Section 8, we're on food assistance, we're both on medical assistance. Excuse me. And, that's the only 3 safety nets that we have. And Anthony's got SSI, if I worked, I could only make up to like between $700 to $1,300 a month before it would impact his SSI. So, it doesn't pay me to work, and it never paid me to work even when he was in school, because I would need after school care.
Right.
And after school care is still $400 to $500 a week for somebody who's marginally adequate. And so, the system does not work for the people that it's supposed to work for. It sure works for the people that it needs to work for, which is the people that have the deep pockets, the CEOs of these insurance companies.
Absolutely. And on that note, Michelle, you brought up capitalism, and that is the underlying factor. So do you want to touch more on that?
Yeah, so there's 2 underlying factors I feel with this. One is capitalism, and that's probably the biggest one, because capitalism and our medical system, which is based in capitalism, our medical system is based in profit, not in human health. Our public health is actually no longer based in public health. It's based in what's the best for the corporations that need us to work. So with these realities, nobody really has to learn how disjointed the system is unless they experience it.
Yeah.
So the disjointed systems let people believe that, and this is ableism, is the second biggest role in all of this. People believe that, oh, you're taken care of by charity. Oh, you're taken care of by the government. You know, and with all of that, there's a reality of, no, I'm not. And nobody can see how I'm not. And that's the shroud of capitalism, I would say, that keeps everybody so busy in looking in 17 million pots that Kansas, as an example, just to share this bit, California actually, well, this goes to Maria, but Maria, California passed an increase in the asset limit. So we actually currently in the state of California have a 200,000 asset limit, I think. Don't quote me on that, but it's a whole lot larger. But most people don't know about that. California also passed a proposal recently to move towards getting rid of alternative minimum wage, which alternative minimum wage is another toxic little program that's funded by our medical insurance system called Medi-Cal that the supports are essential. However, the process is toxic. And it's like, you get people that don't understand. It's like, oh, we need that for these students that need that, you know, the sheltered work environments, the alternative minimum wage, you know. But what happened when we started to shift it was even the nonprofits that serve the IDD and the developmentally disabled community, or ID and D acronyms, my brain's not totally capacitated.
You had it right, IDD.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I got all of them there. But those programs, they're getting underfunded now because they can no longer get the same amount of money and they have to pay their workers more, which has, in the end, was a great change. And there's a lot of work being done to affect that transition. However, we're stuck because now these young people with disabilities or adults with disabilities that have IDD actually don't have that resource available to them because the money stream has made it inaccessible. This podcast as well, most of the podcasts I'm on, we all struggle with the streaming capacity to make sure it's a universally designed event because of the cost. It costs too much to caption one of these things. And we don't have the time because we're all doing this on the side to really develop a grassroots process for doing that. And it's not an omission by intention. It's a matter of, it's just a complexity that everybody deals with. It costs a lot of money to caption something. There are resources that people can use behind the screen and stuff like that, but it's fairly complicated. But that's the disjoint. Capitalism is toxic and it's killing me. Killing all of us, I think. But we're so busy we don't actually realize that we're getting killed by the stuff that we technically think we still believe in.
I just want to jump in if I could. And for people that are listening and they say, oh, they raised the asset limit to $200,000. In my case, I have a partner who has a 401k that will not be able to touch the money until he's 65, but they would count that against him. So Absolutely. Just think about how much money you have in your 401k, and that would be counted against you immediately. So.
Absolutely. And some states, I'm in Pennsylvania, they want to know, you got a car? How much is that worth? You got a house? How much is that worth? Well, I have a 30-year mortgage. Doesn't matter. How much is your house worth? Like it's really, it's contingent on so many things. And that's the thing that I want people to take away from this. Well, one of many things is National Improved Medicare for All. There are no contingencies. There are no means testing. There is no, there's no caveat. There's no but. There is no unless. It's literally everything. Period. Just like the 56 other countries who have it. Noli D, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, actually, I mentioned it briefly here in the chat. Let me grab my notes really quick. So I mentioned in the chat that Social Security and Medicare are paid for with a separate tax. So right now, Social Security has a $2.5 trillion surplus. Congress has borrowed trillions upon trillions of dollars from Social Security to pay for war, to pay for their bullshit, to pay for their tax cuts on the rich. And they're wanting to cut back on Social Security. Why? Why they want to? Why do they need to do that? We're not creating, any kind of a national debt issue. It has nothing to do with people that are on Social Security or disability. And I get frustrated. I've been trying to reach my representative for 5.5 years now. I have it set up on my computer so that every week an automatic email just is sent to her because I give up trying to call and everything else. I'm just done trying. I update that letter every once in a while, but not too often. And I haven't heard anything. I got one auto response from her, and that was it. And it made it impossible to speak with these people who have control, who are sitting on special boards that have control over this. And if you look at people who are sitting on the healthcare boards, they're all of them have relatives who they own stock in like different medical areas. And so, of course, when something comes down to a vote to them, they're going to vote in their own best interest. They're not voting for us. They're not voting our conscience or our will. They're voting theirs. And that right there alone is illegal. But we're powerless to do anything about it because of the supremacist court. Excuse me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I thought you were continuing. My bad. Yeah, I mean, the government has an endless supply of money. We print it ourselves. So, I mean, there is literally no reason for any of this. Plus, Biden is trying to, privatize Medicare fully. And there's DCEs and all of these things that they're trying to push Medicare Advantage, which is just not. I worked in healthcare for over a decade before I started going blind, and it was just bad. It is definitely going to put people in debt. On that topic of medical debt, something I found is that in the past, people would say, oh, well, you could just pay $5 a month. You're good. You're good. They can't do anything. Well, that's not how it works anymore. So you literally, at least in Pennsylvania, I've been getting, hundreds and hundreds of dollars in medical bills, even though I have insurance. And I'll call and I say, can you do charity care? And of course, that doesn't work. You send your bank statements and blah, blah, blah. But I'm married. Like we discussed, they count my husband's income. They do count Social Security as well, which is another topic in itself. So you try that and then you say, well, can I have a payment plan? And they say, well, in order to have a payment plan, you have to meet the monetary guidelines as well. What do you mean I need to meet monetary guidelines? I'm telling you what my bills are. So, and they have every right to credit report you within 30 days. It doesn't matter. So this, people thinking, well, you just have to pay a few bucks a month. They'll lay off. That is not how it works at all. And Congressman Ro Khanna reached out to me and a few others from March for Medicare for All and invited us down to DC to meet with him. So we did go and we talked to him for over an hour, and I brought over $15,000 of my medical bills with insurance. And those were from the past 2 years since I started going blind. And he said to me, are you in debt? I almost fell off the chair. Who has $15,000 when I've just explained I didn't have any income for 2 years while I was waiting for Social Security to process? Do you think I have that in the bank Like, I was just floored. But the good thing is, by the end of it, me and my two teammates had convinced him to reach out to Bernie, and they are working on a medical debt cancellation legislation because of our meeting. So something did happen. That was good. But yeah, it kind of floored me when I was just like, am I in debt? Are you kidding me? Like, I cleaned out my 401k of over a decade. Like, this is
And
not.
Ro Khanna is one of the stronger members in Congress to support Medicare for all. So if you think a representative like that is out of touch, think about somebody like a Nancy Pelosi or a Dianne Feinstein.
Oh yeah, she eats ice cream and yogurt from her multi-thousand-dollar refrigerator.
Exactly. That's why I was just kind of blown away. And that's why I brought the stacks, because I wanted to bring tangibles. Because if I say $15,000 to someone like him, that's $15,000. But that's why I brought, like, his eyes were kind of like, when I showed him like this huge, thick, folder of all these bills. And, that's another topic I want to touch on. For all of us who aren't disabled, and Joe, even you with your son, what is it like when you guys get bills, even if it's wrong and it gets straightened out eventually or what have you? Do you find that when you get these bills, even if it's a mistake, that it exacerbates every single thing in your mental, physical, psychological ability to handle things? We can go around. Noli.
It does. It will mess with your further appointments, and some appointments are really hard to get, and you do have to wait months and months and months. I know that my heart appointment, I had to wait like almost 2 years for my heart. Like, are you kidding me? But the simplest thing can mess it up because it's within a certain network of doctors. And if you end up with a bill from this doctor in the same office that does something, does like family care or whatever, you can't go and see the specialist. And till that gets all taken care of. And a lot of times it takes weeks to get that taken care of. And then it'll ghost, yeah, and it'll shadow you. Like, within months, you'll end up with that same bill again for some reason. And it just adds to the mental stress of everything anyway. I mean, it's really hard to keep yourself out of debt, even when you're working, even when you've got a job. But to be on a extremely fixed income that is unlivable. And I would love to see these people in Congress try just for 6 months to live off $850. Just throw them in a city they've never been to before. So here's $850. I'll see you in a month. Mm-hmm. You get no help from nobody. I'd love to see how they manage, because they wouldn't be able to do it.
They would cry in the fetal position within probably 3 days.
Oh, easy. Because they probably go to the Hilton or some crap, and that's like, what, 1 day, 2 days tops?
Absolutely. Michelle.
Yeah. Insurance is even more complicated, though, when you have to have multiple ones. So when you're on Medicare and Medi-Cal, every time you get, it's like an explanation of benefits gets sent to me, and I'm like, oh shit, these things weren't covered. What do I do now? Fortunately, for the years I've been involved in the system, I learned enough, but like, nobody should learn this stuff. Nobody should have to learn this stuff. I used to think it was funny the first time I saw Michael Moore's Sicko video, documentary, where he's going around the hospital asking everybody, hey, what's my copay? What's my copay? What's my copay? And everybody's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And, the state of California has some good programs, and they have a lot of neoliberal programs that are fairly toxic, and they're doing more harm than good. Like the state health registry. Most of those programs don't actually cover the same thing as market rate based program does. So you're in a hoop and a loop of, you pay $300 to $500 a month for a program because it's mandated by state of California to have health insurance. With that, and that's a discounted $300 to $500. I think the cheapest you can get that doesn't cover much at all is maybe at, $100, $200 a month. But if you're older, it's going to be higher, and so that's all kind of messed up. But when you add all of these elements in, and I think I've lost my train of thought. So I have COVID brain. So I think that's the majority of what I wanted to say. It's the systems hurt us. Medicare for All would help those systems because it would make it universal and make it less about me having to worry about changing from my doctors that I've seen for many, many years who still can't get my health struggles correct, to, I had to point out today that my doctor was like, you're immunocompromised, right? I says, well, yeah, I know I'm immunocompromised, but nowhere on my long list of diagnoses does it actually say I'm immunocompromised. So when I go see another doctor, they don't know I'm immunocompromised. So these are just ongoing struggles.
Wow. Yeah. Maria.
Again, I'm lucky to be able to live in the state of Vermont, thanks to the work with Jim Jeffords and Senator Jim Jeffords and Kennedy back in the 90s, passing the People with Disabilities Work Act. I'm able to have a job and still maintain my Medicaid. So I am luckier than most. What I worry about are the people that in this pandemic who are losing their jobs. We had over 5 million people lose their jobs. And I was a delegate for Bernie Sanders in 2016 and in 2020. And in 2020, we decided to take a stand and draw a line for Medicare for All and say to the Democrats, if you can't even put the words Medicare for All in the party platform, we're not going to vote for it. And over 1,000 delegates said, no, until Joe Biden and the Democrats can recognize that we need a universal healthcare system, we're going to hold them accountable. And thankfully, 1,000 people did, but 3,000 people plus did not. So, and I'm really disappointed sometimes in people who are supposedly progressive. Even in the state of Vermont, only 4 people out of I can't remember how many delegates we had, around 20 delegates, 15 to 20 delegates, only 4 people took the pledge. And until we all realize that we're in this together, and I'm fighting for you to get marriage equality, I hope you fight for me to get Medicare for All so I can have marriage equality. Until we start realizing that we need each other, I'm worried about all the people that are falling through the gap. So.
Absolutely. Joe.
Well, we don't really have any unexpected medical bills. Our problem is that say Anthony needs a new pair of shoes. Well, because we're on such cats, I swear, because we're on a fixed income and we live so tight each month, a new pair of shoes is a major expense for us. Anything clothing wise or, just unexpected. And it's not a great way to live. Going back to the point on like when you your assets and stuff, for us to stay on Section 8, they want to know everything from when you bought a car to if you've sold blood or whatnot. If you sold a kidney, you know, because if you sold a kidney, then you get charged more for rent, right? Um, and it's just it's crazy. I wanted to address something I saw in the chat. What does the panel think on the ban in Wisconsin to help disabled voters with receiving assistance or using absentee ballot boxes? 4 disabled voters are suing because they banned ballot return assistance. Disabled people need to be able to vote, period. By whatever means they are able to vote. That's something that we have fought for here in Kansas is advanced voting, mail-in ballots, ballot drop boxes, whatever we can accommodate to make sure that disabled voters can vote. We have tried to do it.
Wow, thank you so much for that information. I did not hear of that. I'm definitely going to have to look into that more. That is, wow, that's bananas. I'm going to kind of switch it up a little bit. And I want to talk to you about working. I legally lost my job when I started going blind. And 2 months ago, I started working again. I tried everything in the world to find a job, and I was transparent about having a little site, and nobody was hiring me. So I took a job that I am highly overqualified for. And I work in the back room of a store without air conditioning, unloading trucks, and I process clothes, so I have to put those little things on the hangers with the sizes, and get horrible migraines because I have to try and see them all day and things like that, just because disability isn't enough. People think we got disability, we can sit at home all day. It's not like that. So I know I've certainly been dealing with ableist comments and stuff, and I didn't realize it would be as bad as it was. And I think so many people just have no idea what they're saying is ableist. For an example, my boss said to me last week, she said, Joy, so how much vision do you have? I said, I'm about 85% blind. And she said, and you work? That is so impressive. Oh my gosh, I'm so impressed. I said, wow, thank you so much. That means a lot. And then she goes, would it help if I got you some kind of magnifying glass or something? I said, no, I have a prescription one, and you can only look at it on paper and stuff like that. And she goes, oh, I just figured it would make you speed up a little. I was like, I am so naive, because I was like, thank you. That's so nice. And she actually meant it as capitalism. Come on, let's go. And I was just like, wow, okay. You weren't asking out of care. You were asking because you want me to go faster. Great. So, I'm dealing with things like that. And if we could just go around again, and I want to, kind of see if you guys have dealt with, things like that. Noli?
I'm actually really fortunate. My boss has gone above and beyond to make sure that I have access to everything I need so that I can work. So I even got like a week paid off, like, because I needed it, and I've only been there like 3 months.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah.
She seems awesome. So yeah, that's amazing. Michelle, how about yourself?
I have a lot to this question. There's a reality that accommodations, there's actually a network that is called Ask Jan, ASKJAN, that literally has a laundry list of accommodations that people can request based on categorized by their disability. However, that resource, even for myself, was not something I found until just recently, but it's been around for a long time. So having to shift my job right now at the point we're at with the pandemic is scary as all get out. The other thing that's scary about it, though, is bumping me off all the essential services that I currently receive. And with the types of jobs I'm looking for, it's going to be I'm going to be very easily bumped off, including California's 250% working disabled program, which would, my expenses hopefully will offset things enough. But ableism is everywhere, and people don't know anything about it because our government keeps pushing disability aside. It's like, oh, disability is a charity for these people. We need to protect these people. We need to just give them enough to scrape by and suffer so that we can continue to do our business. When in reality, the responsibilities of an employer, if you have, I think it's 15 or more employees, is that you have to meet accessibility demands, access demands, but nowhere in that accessibility framework is there a check for ableism. And I'm disabled, but I walk around with my own internalized ableism every single place that I go to. Capitalism creates this ableist mindset that is, oh, we must do. And if you're upset with me, it's cancel culture. Or if you're upset with me, it's this. Or if you're upset with me, it's this. I won't engage with you. I just want to make more drama. When in reality, ableism, racism, sexism, homophobia, all of these things are so intertwined in toxic because of capitalism that it just makes it so much worse. So the accommodation process, sometimes I can't even get into a door of a business or a place. When I'm looking for a job, I now have to ask them, is your facility wheelchair accessible? Because if it's not, I can't get in the door. When somebody's looking to hire me, they have to look at, can we take care of all of her needs in this capitalist system, instead of our government actually mandating that these needs be met, full stop, to prevent the harms that are happening not only to disabled people, but temporarily disabled people, people that have an injury or a sudden change in their health. The pandemic is a solid example of this, around working. What happened? Was it $300 or $600 extra in unemployment went out to every person every week? Nothing went out to disabled people who were barely surviving, regardless of what social supports we had. I was lucky to get a box of food that had this weird oil in it, and onions and potatoes and rice and all these white things that just put more weight on me. But that's what the government says I deserve. So with all of this, there's just an ongoing struggle of the lack of knowledge, the lack of intentional inclusion, because we all can stop this by starting to make the changes deliberately in what we're doing. When you put on an event that doesn't have a ramp to the stage, when you put on something that isn't accessible, when you don't list COVID protocols on your flyer, you disinvited me. You said you are not welcome here unless you're safe enough in our conditions, because we're not going to change them for you, and we're not going to change them for anybody, except for if somebody has a sizable check to coerce them into changing it. So this is just a never-ending struggle of never enough time, never enough people, not even having a supportive network within the employment structures, within our government even, on understanding ADA and accessibility variables, because I still have people saying I'm handicapped. And that term went out. I still struggle with saying it because I grew up learning that it's handicap parking and not disabled parking. But it's like, it's that reality that it's hard to unlearn some of these things. But when you have so much to unlearn, of layer over layer over layer, I can't get doctors that understand what it's like to live with complex medical issues, because my insurance doesn't fund me to go to a certain network, and I have to kind of it does fund me, but that network doesn't have the comprehensive people that understand the complex health issues, unless I get the right referral to a higher level that becomes complicated and not easy to maintain. If I go out of network, I run the risk of having an extra bill, even though I'm on dually covered, I'm on Medi-Medi. But the reality is some people don't accept Medi-Cal and Medicare as insurance programs. They dictate what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And so all of this, when it comes to shifting my place of work, it's a mess, because I'm likely going to have to move. I'm likely going to have to move out of where I've lived for the last 10 plus years. I will have to go off my public benefits. And unlike some other people that either are born with a disability or have a significant recognizable disabling condition that is just like one and not this potpourri of everything else, they can more easily get off from benefits and get back on them, even though that's a hellish struggle too. Blind people receive a little bit more money from Social Security, but that's nowhere near enough to still survive. But there's that stratification in every single thing that we do. And at some point, even with work situations, people just have to look at things and say, it's more valuable to meet this person's need now, rather than make them jump through 16 hoops to get their doctor note, to get the means test of you deserve this because your doctor said so. You're not smart enough to let us trust you because you don't know the you that's present. So when the working stuff is hard, and that's, I think for me, one of the biggest variables that has shown me the need for the more national plan over a state-based plan. I still see state plans as something that can happen to have a domino effect on more change, but so much is being done wrong right now that it's hard to know what would actually be an effective domino to happen, the push point of it. And that's
Marie?
it.
No, it's hard once we get going. I'm like, and also.
Yeah. Again, I kind of sound like a broken record. I am lucky to be able to have a wonderful job through a private college that I graduated from. But they were great to always want to try to improve the situation for me. I think the pandemic opened up their eyes to some things, like the struggle of having to commute to work and things of that nature. And so when people discovered Zoom sessions, like trying to get to an early morning meeting for someone who has a 2-hour care program in the morning is impossible. So they would tend to like schedule meetings at 8 or 9 in the morning, and it's like, I would have to get up at 5 in the morning in order to be able to make it there in time, So I think the pandemic actually made things a little bit more accessible for me in terms of the remote capabilities. But at the same time, I know this isn't work related, but one of my biggest fears was what happens if I get sick and I go into the hospital during the pandemic, because I was being told that, if there's too many people in the hospitals, we're going to have to triage. And who's going to go first? Well, we're going to have to pick who we think has a better quality of life. And I happen to think I have a great quality of life, and I hope to have many years in front of me. But a doctor is going to say, her legs don't work. She has her life is worth less than this person next door because they can walk on 2 feet. The other thing I was scared about was having not being able to have my partner be there because he knows my care the best. So now you're going to be in a situation in a healthcare program with people that don't know your care the best, and you're subjecting yourself to UTIs or bed sores or things of that nature. So I definitely isolated during the pandemic because I was afraid of what would the situation be if they did have to make a decision between 2 different people. And just a funny little story to bring it back to kind of politics, because I know you like politics, Joy. Again, I mentioned I was a delegate for Bernie Sanders both years. In 2016, I went to Philadelphia to be a delegate for him. And
I was in the streets though. I was protesting.
oh, we heard you. We heard you, and you guys made a huge difference. Let me tell you. But yeah, just going there, I tried to talk with their disability person to have accommodations made for me at the convention center as I need care throughout the day. And I said, there's no way. They didn't get in touch with me until like the day before. I was like, there's no way they're going to make these accommodations happen. And when I got there, they were like, thankfully, I have an RV that my partner is very talented in terms of he can MacGyver anything, we like to say. And he's a machinist by trade. So he was able to modify an RV so it has everything I need in it. So it's got a hospital bed and a lift and everything. And I kept trying to say to them, can I just come park this in the parking lot and I can use this as my home base, you know, while I'm in the convention center. In the parking lot. And
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. And so trying to get it, they're like, oh no, you're not going to be able to do that. Well, the day I arrived in Philadelphia, they said, what are the dimensions of your RV and how can we get you a parking pass? Because they dropped the ball. They had nothing prepared. And then when I got to the convention center, now this is the Democratic Party. They're supposed to be open and inclusive. You know, how many people are in wheelchairs going to this convention center? Not that many. And they situated the delegates around this convention center. And there's only, if you've ever been in a convention center, there's wheelchair sections that you can come out on. And there's only about, 6 or so in the whole convention center. Do you think they would have tried to situate Vermont next to a wheelchair section so I could sit with my delegation? No. So I had to sit by myself and watch all my friends who, it was a pretty important year because, as you know, Bernie was one of the candidates. So Vermont was a very popular state to be in that year. And so I was forced to sit by myself. And so I felt like it was like a separate but equal kind of situation. I could not be with my delegates. And this is the Democratic Party who preaches inclusion. So,
oh my God.
Just a funny, story, because I don't have any discrimination stories from work. I thought that would be a good one to add.
And I can tap on a little bit with that too, because part of why I got the break that I got locally in my county was because as a leader of a nonprofit, I was called into a meeting that was like, hey, come help the county do these things. We need the community leaders, but they didn't make an accessible Zoom event. So I pushed in the event. They're like, no, we're doing language translation later. And I'm like, okay, so I'm doing English and I'm talking captions, subtitles here, and they were like, and I got real big egg on the face of the elected person, basically, and her staffer that was so woefully not answering the question correctly. And that afforded a group of us the opportunity to advocate for an Office of Disability Affairs. And I got a disability inclusion and equity pledge passed. The disability inclusion and equity pledge is something I freely share with other groups and other people because to me, it addresses the root problem, which is the ableism and the need for equity for disabled people, because the ADA was like supposed to be the starting point, and it was supposed to grow over time and expand and be more inclusive and create a better situation. But it hasn't, because the ableism is still there. And these are good people, good groups of people that are trying to do things, but inevitably the ableism, what they don't know, and it ends up harming disabled people. And that's the point that, I continue to struggle to do, to change,
Absolutely. Joe, would you like to add something?
Well, last year, as part of one of the things that I did on the ADA council that I serve on here in Topeka, I helped create, implement, deploy, summarize, and deliver a report or survey on accessibility issue or accessibility parking in the city of Topeka. That was a survey process that took most of summer, all summer actually. And we found, some of the some stuff that I already knew we were going to uncover was accessibility parking issues downtown. Places we found people that were parking in van accessible side spaces. Even Walmart had one of their little mobile security things in a handicap accessible spot that it wasn't supposed to be in. And there's, one of the things that we talked about at our last ADA council meeting, because we're looking for a full-time ADA coordinator position for the city of Topeka. And there's lots of things that you don't take into consideration to make your workspace, your workplace, ADA accessible. Everything from how your website is designed to function so that it is accessible for people that need screen readers. Do you have enough Braille accessibility for people that are visually impaired? Do you have adequate closed captioning and sign language for people that are hearing impaired? There's just so many things that you don't, that people just don't take into consideration. And for Anthony, if he were to get a job, I would always worry that he would come into contact with somebody who doesn't understand his speech. And his boss going, getting all uptight and this, that, and everything else, and then him going into a full-blown anxiety attack at work. So that is one of the reasons why I have not really encouraged him to go out and find a actual paying job. Plus, here in Kansas, the sub-minimum wage, it's still illegal to pay disabled Kansans and disabled citizens across the United States and 47 states in the Union a sub-minimum wage. And the statute here in Kansas has not changed, or the statute changed in 2012, but the language for sub-minimum wage for disabled people hasn't changed since 1978. Now, when I was on the campaign, or when I was out canvassing yesterday, I had talked to a voter about this, and she was just like shocked that that was even a thing in Kansas. And, after I educated her a little bit about it, she's like, wow, I didn't know this. Thank you. Well, you have my vote, because I take the time at the door to educate people if they want to be educated and let them know, no, this is out there. There's so many things that the normal person takes for granted. And there's things that I'm sure I probably still take for granted. But, there's a lot of things that I know I don't take for granted, having to be a caregiver to my son and all the challenges that he faces. And I'm like, well, if he faces this challenge, other people in his shoes face this challenge.
Absolutely. When I was looking for a job, 3 months ago, I was working with the Blind Association of Pennsylvania, their work program, and they were like, I can't find you anything. And I'm like, why? Like, I've been working, I'm 43 years old. I've been working 20 years, 25 years, and I've been working in offices. Like, I've been working, I've made like 17 an hour. Like, I've done jobs, where it should not be that difficult. But again, people don't want to, make it accessible. Well, I worked for the state Commonwealth of Pennsylvania a few years back. And he said, well, a lot of our people get jobs through there. But here's the thing, since they're the state and they do hire people with disabilities, if you get hired there, they will give you everything you need accommodation wise, be it, dictation, be it a bigger screen, bigger keys. But when you take your test to see if you qualified to work for the state, you do not get to use any of those accommodations. So basically, I type like 10 words per minute with mistakes, maybe. And you're telling me I can't use any of those things, but if I got lucky and hit the lottery and got the job, then I could use them. So it's like, just admit you don't want disabled people to work for you. It's like, my God, like it's so, I couldn't believe he said that. I could not believe it. But yeah, I digress a bit, but I do want to, since I did entitle it, the show, the women's disability empowerment, I want to just talk a bit about, being a woman, being LGBTQ plus, the different, things where people struggle, and being a woman is a struggle, and then being a disabled woman is a struggle. And of course, people of color being disabled as well is like a whole other struggle. So I just kind of want to talk about that as well. Noli D?
Well, yeah. Okay, so 50% of the people who are killed every year by police are disabled.
Wow.
That is an extremely high number. It is extremely disturbing. I know you're like empowerment, but I'm gonna make you all more depressed. Let me tell you. The Native American population, they make up less than 2% of the population, and they are the highest at risk of being killed by police. The amount of disabled people that we have in our communities, like 70%, like in just my res out here where I'm at, most of the people that are our tribe's down to less than 3,000. And so the amount of elderly and disabled people that are in this tribe, there's not enough undisabled people or able people to take care of all the disabled people that's in our tribe. That's how bad it's gotten. And I think that people need to just kind of be more aware of where their empathy is at, and realize that we are targeted, we are taken advantage of, we are manipulated easily by the government and by the neighbor. It's a terrifying place to be at all the time. And then when you go out in public, when I go out in public, I struggle with that the most. I hate leaving my house. I hate it. I do travel when I have to, but I'd rather not. Why don't y'all just come here? But I ended up getting stuck outside of the Philadelphia airport with my bags, and I couldn't move my wheelchair and take my bags. And I'm just sitting there in the middle of winter. There's snow on the ground, and I'm going to miss my plane, and I'm freezing. Well, I ended up coming home, and I ended up with more damage to my legs because I sat out in the cold for so long. And it's if able people would just see you and realize that you don't have a choice in how you are, and use their empathy, I think that things would be better. I get frustrated when I see that people are complaining about their tax dollars going towards supporting somebody down the street. But the thing is, really, no, your tax dollars are going to murder people overseas. What is being used for people like us is not really coming out of anyone's pocket. Medicare, Medicaid, all that is paid for, by people who are working. I mean, I guess for me anyway, I paid for years of mine. I never thought about, oh, well, my money's going to pay for my grandparents' paychecks. I never thought about it that way. And how other people can think of it that way is just really weird. I don't know, but that's really all I have to add.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that's another reason why M4M4ALL supports national, is because no states have to pay for it. Then the government pays for it, and they have the money for it. Let them pay for it. Michelle.
So empowerment, excuse me. Empowerment to me has been like a process. And it's been a lot more of me coming out of my shell, and kind of to touch a little bit on Noli D's points. We need to decolonize our minds, around so much stuff, because part of what I feel empowers me is my disability. It's the skill sets that I've developed because I've had to manage my health and I've had to manage my life in a way that was different. And then I've actually had experiences where what I was able to do, one time they refused me hours on a recertification for my in-home service because I'm also reliant on a personal assistant. I partner with them. I do things with them. I don't see, they are still my employee, and and all of that. It is a state funded program as well. And it's essential. So why judge me for it being essential? And why judge me based on the cost? If that cost can get one or many people a better quality of living, and through that process of learning and unlearning and realizing the toxic situations we find ourselves in, I've realized that I am empowered, and it's hard though. It's because it's also this other side of things. It's like I come into these spaces knowing that it's not universally designed because of capitalism, so how do we get things out to everybody? And it's a whole lot of work to do that. But the conflict of being a woman, and which is like, for me, it's that caregiving and that desire to help others, and the resource share. And then I have a certain amount of white saviorism that I'm trying to unlearn, and that's been an important process. But it's also huge knowledge, and that knowledge is what will help more people, and it will help change the systems that we're currently active in. When we stop thinking of disability as a separate program, but more integrated and merged in mainstream society, the solutions change and everybody becomes empowered. Go figure. That's a surprise. If we meet the human needs in the room, all of a sudden everybody's more powerful. Well, that's a good reason for capitalism to keep us down.
Absolutely. Great points. Maria?
I've been very lucky to have a lot of support throughout my life from my family. I've always had a good family support. My partner is very good support to me. So I have always, especially because of my partner, I've been able to have that feeling that I can do things that I don't think I necessarily thought I could do. So driving for me was a big thing for years. My parents worried, oh my God, will you be able to drive a car? You can't use your hands, And my husband said, I refer to him that way. My partner said to me, well, why can't you give it a try? They have, hand controls and things you can use. And I tried it, and I was just, the independence that it gave me was amazing. Just being able to get myself somewhere else without having to excuse me, to depend on someone else. So I decided to create a peace and justice chorus because I love to sing. And I feel like I want to spread that with other people and have an emotional connection with audiences, and hopefully try to counteract some of this negativity that we're having. And so my partner is here building a workshop that he hopes to be able to work at some time in the future, even though he's a very slow builder. But that's going to be his like hobby thing once he gets it done. But it's nice to be able to say, hey, I don't need you. I can go do my own thing. And then when I come back, we can have, our time together. So that just being able to drive was very empowering for me, I found. One thing that I thought was extremely scary when I was younger, and I went to my first OBGYN appointment, that the doctor asked me if I had ever been sexually assaulted. And I thought it was such a strange question to ask. But then she said, when I said no, and she said, you are so lucky. Do you know how many women with a disability have been assaulted? And I said, I never would have thought of it. So, things like that stay, in the back of my mind as I go through life. But I try not to let things like that affect me. I try to stay positive. The singing group has been a wonderful outlet for me and for other people. So, that brings me joy. I get kind of tired of, I can't change the system. What can I do to change people's attitudes? And so we put on 3 concerts this summer, and it's all about, it's Vermont's Freedom and Unity Chorus, if anybody wants to look it up. And we go around and we just sing songs that are, we invite anyone to sing with us, regardless of your background. I wanted a place where everyone could feel safe, regardless of their race, sexual orientation, gender expression, disability. And I think the message that we bring with us and the mission is, audiences really appreciate it and they feel it. And this last concert we had, I can't tell you how many people commented and complimented us on just how healing it was to have something like that. So that's how I've been choosing to spend my time now, instead of trying to deal with the headache of a system that just doesn't seem to want to be fixed. So
that is so amazing. Joe, how about yourself?
Well, having to navigate everything that I've had to navigate with Anthony over the last 22 years, that has empowered me in ways I never even thought, or and stretched me, made me grow in ways that I hadn't even thought about before he was born. Like with everything that I have to fight for him, I wouldn't have the confidence to run for office because, or even be on a show like this. I don't abhor public speaking, but at one point in time, I was very nervous about doing it, and now it's not so bad anymore. Because in the back of my head, I'm like, you have to do this because you have to continue to speak up and speak out for your son. And because if you don't do it, nobody else is going to. And so I just had to check myself real quick and give myself a swift kick in the butt and say, you got to get out there and you got to continue to do this. Now, Maria, I want to go back to something that you said about sexual assault and disabilities. I was out canvassing last week, no, about a week and a half ago, on a Wednesday, and I was talking to this woman, and she said that her loved one was in an institution and had been raped 5 times. And my heart hurt so bad for this woman, because I told her, I said, well, I was raped, and I am finding so many stories of people that have been in domestic violence situations or sexually assaulted, and it keeps me empowered to keep going on running and just my life in general, because it's all about connecting with people and women, especially who have gone through these things, to know that we're not alone out here and that we're not crazy and that there is a support system out there. And, I want to be able to, create a different battered women's shelter structure here eventually. Because the one we have is not working. It didn't really work for me. Plus, I'm blacklisted, so if anything ever happens to me here in Topeka, I can't go there. But just connecting with people and having to take care of Anthony is what keeps me empowered.
Absolutely. I think for myself, like, honestly, I didn't ask to be like this, like, disability poster child thing that, like, it literally just happened. And, I was on Force the Vote town hall, and it just kind of blew up from there. And, I get messages every single day, every day, of people sharing their stories with me. That's what keeps me going, because when you become disabled overnight, as some of you know, grieving process, you have those 5 stages. You're like, and hopefully at some point you get to the acceptance part, and you're faced with like 2 decisions when something like that happens. You either stop getting out of bed or you fight it and you use it for good. You use it to try and help people and to try and make some kind of difference. And we all have our days. I definitely have my days where I'm like, oh yeah, I just don't want to get out of bed. But that's the thing about all of you. You just keep going. You keep getting up. You keep fighting. So on that note, I want everyone to share where people can find you, and also any last closing thoughts you'd like people to take away from the show. Noli D?
You can find me here on YouTube. Just type in my name, Noli D. You'll find me eventually. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook.
Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to leave?
I don't. I'm sweating like a pig.
Just go on a Twitter rant later.
I feel too.
Michelle, how about yourself?
So I use Shell Pfeffer as my Twitter, and that's probably the easiest place to connect with me. Spelling it, though, may be more difficult. I think if you're here, you can find the post, and I was tagged in that post, so you can connect with me that way. Having COVID sucks because I'm also trying to look for a job and other things. And it's like the thing I want people to hear the most on this is our system doesn't give me a break. It doesn't give me time to rest. It doesn't give me time to heal. It doesn't give me time to recover more because there's deadlines and other things that a lot of them you can't stop. So, or change, and part of the solutions to these things, while the deeper variable of ableism is always going to be there, part of changing these things are those policies and procedures and practices and businesses and individuals that reach out and say, we can do better. And then by their example, more people start to offer those services and those practices. I welcome the conversations that we have. We need to have more of them. It was awesome to look through the chat and to see the people engaging and talking and bringing up other issues. Disability is a life issue, which means disability touches every facet. The only other point I want to really make is oppression works almost exponentially the more variables somebody gets. When you're income marginalized, when you're race marginalized, when you're disability marginalized, all of these things impact that person's impacted greater than I am myself, because I still have my white skin privilege. And we need to continue to work and strive towards bringing other people of color into the spaces around disability. And I also understand it's very hard because for some people like myself that juggle a lot of different things, we just don't have the time or the capacity to do it. But we really need to be more intentional about actively reaching out and including as many representatives of the communities of color, because white so disabled is a real thing. And we need to start addressing the racism and the paternalism that's baked into our system so that we are representing more accurately everybody's lived experience. But thank you for the opportunity. It's been great to talk with everybody as well. So.
Absolutely. And on that note, I definitely want to say, our March is Saturday and we have the most diverse group of incredible speakers. We do have 2 disabled women of color who are speaking, who are both queer as well. Oh my gosh, our lineup is amazing. Oh yeah, and I'm MC, so. So if you weren't gonna come, no. Maria.
Probably the easiest way to find me, I'm on Facebook if people want to look me up, but the easiest way is probably through Vermont's Freedom and Unity Chorus.org is the website for my chorus. In terms, I just want to thank you, Joy, for having this discussion tonight, because I think when people talk about Medicare for all, the disability aspect of it is often forgotten. You see, even at the congressional level, they only just added long-term care to the Medicare for all bill just in the last couple of years. So it's not something that everyone was really thinking about. I think Addie Bart has been pushing for that. And so I really appreciate you bringing a voice to that. That's really wonderful. The only thing I'd like to say. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I appreciate you being brave enough to be on camera for the first time.
Oh my God. You got me to do a lot of firsts. You got me to do my first speech there over in Vermont too, when you were up visiting. So, but I'll do anything for you, Joy. So, I just want to say that, in terms of disability, everyone, the chances of people's coming down with a disability or becoming disabled increases as you get older. So although you might not be disabled now, there is a possibility of it happening in the future. And so this really it's an issue that affects all of us, and we should be concerned for each other and have each other's back, because I'm totally out there willing to fight for anyone who is being discriminated against or feels like they're not equal. And I just really hope that other people will listen to our stories and be willing to fight for us too. So
Absolutely.
It's the whole not me, us, you know.
Absolutely. Joe?
Well, people can follow me on Twitter at WILDHEART4VR. And if you want to follow along on my campaign, you can do so at Sheree for Kansas, Sheree for KSHD53. And I want to thank you for thinking about me and letting me be on this panel tonight. That means a lot to me. And I hope to make it through my primary so that I can make it through the general so that I can start creating policies here in Kansas that will eventually radiate out to the rest of the country to help people with disabilities and to also help caregivers. Caregivers are forgotten in this thing. I would like to be able to get mental health services. I cannot get mental health. I mean, I can, but it's a $10 copay. And if I decide I want to go 4 times a month, that's $40 a month I don't have in my pocket. So I want to be able to change that. There's a lot of things that need to be changed, and I feel like I'm the person at this moment in history to hopefully make that change for people that need it the most. So,
Well, I am so done with electoral politics, but I would vote for you in a heartbeat. True. Well, thank you,
you.
ladies, so much. This has been amazing. Noli D, Michelle, Maria, Joe, you're just inspiring and incredible. To everyone watching, thank you so much. Smash that like button, that subscribe, share. M4M4ALL is doing actions all this week. I am leaving for DC tomorrow morning, so I will be in DC the next 6 days. We have a lot planned. Some is not exactly public because, we don't want like Popo showing up, but it's nothing bad. It's DC and they're, so we're doing everything from, public disruptance to direct action to mutual aid for the unhoused. We're doing tons of stuff. And then Saturday is the march and rally. So the march is at the Ellipse. Get there 10:30. March starts at 11. And then directly to the rally, which is Union Square Park. So we will be speaking right in front of the Capitol. So they will hear us. Definitely. We're going to be making some noise. And we have 15 speakers plus myself. So it is going to be incredible. I'm so excited. We've been working on this for months, so it's so exciting to have it finally happen. So shout out to M4M4ALL. Follow them on Twitter under that and M4M4ALL.org. If you'd like to learn more or donate or sign up for our email list or sign up to volunteer, you guys get an exclusive, incredibly awesome t-shirt if you help us at the march. So definitely consider that as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and thank you, ladies, so much for joining.
Thank you. Have a good night, folks.
You too. Take care.
Thanks, Joy.